Hey all, if you've seen my videos before, you probably know that I am not a professional photographer. I've had no academic training. I think I've made like $25 once off a photo that was published in Hudson Valley magazine. I don't even claim to be good. I just take pictures, and I've been doing so for about 18 years. I started with a point and shoot that my mom gave me, and then I got my first DSLR. And now, as much as I hate to admit it, I mostly take photos with my phone. One thing I like to try to do is revisit places I've photographed years before and recreate those shots. I've got a link in the description of a video I made of a time that I did that if you're curious. About 10 years ago, I tried something a little different. I decided to recreate a photo taken by my favorite photographer, Stephen Shore. Now, I don't know too much about Stephen Shore. I've taken books of his out from the library, and I've looked at his stuff online, and I really like it. And he teaches not far, or at least he taught not far from where I live in the upper Hudson Valley at Bard College. His work captures what I would call the beautiful blandness of America, its people, its places, daily life, in a way that feels deeply honest and matter-of-fact. There's other photographers who I like the late Helen Levitt, or William Eggleston. They're great, but Stephen Shore, he's my guy. And I also like that he's photographed places nearby where I live, sort of my backyard in a sense. Which brings me to Danbury, Connecticut. A few weeks ago, I tried to recreate one of Shore's photos, a shot that he took of St. Joseph's Catholic Church on Main Street in the city. He made that original on July 12, 1974, which I think was a Friday. At that time, President Nixon was on his way out, the communists in Vietnam were close to victory, inflation was up, and gas was hard to come by. It was a moment of American upheaval, or maybe malaise, I'm not sure. I hear really negative stuff about the 70s, and I was born in the late 70s myself. In the middle of that, Shore seemed to be quietly documenting life, town by town, and in this case, in the city of Danbury. I believe Shore was on a regional road trip through western New England at the time that he took this photo in Danbury. In his book, Uncommon Places, which I'll also provide a link to, he has another photo taken the very next day or maybe a day after in North Adams, Massachusetts, and then another one in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. And these are places that are not that far from Danbury, maybe just an hour and a half drive, I'm not too sure, but not far. And I tried to recreate one of those photos, too, back in 2014, a photo that he took in North Adams. You can see the original photo, and you can see the attempt that I took to recreate it, and you can see my wife holding up Stephen Shore's book to compare the shots, sort of. The storefronts there in North Adams have changed. Mount Greylock's view is mostly blocked now, but Shore's original composition still speaks through. There's other photos from Uncommon Places that I'd like to get. So my Danbury attempt was actually my second attempt at trying to take the picture of St. Joseph's Church. I tried to do it about 10 years ago on a trip to Danbury, but I decided against it because I had people with me, and it takes a little bit of time. So why did Shore choose these towns? I don't know, but I like what he saw. And if imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, then maybe I'm just a Timu knockoff Stephen Shore, minus his eye, his talent, or patience, or the success that he's had, and I use a digital camera instead of film. But I try. So this time around, I arrived in Danbury at noon on Labor Day this year, and it was a beautiful late summer day, and I had my two little boys with me. We were visiting this train museum in Danbury where I'd been to before, and we were spending the night there in Danbury before returning to New York the next day for the beginning of their school year. As we pulled up to the church, I said the Angelus prayer, which I try to say every day at about noontime. I am a Catholic. I guess I'm observant. I don't claim to be a good Catholic. I'm certainly a sinner, and I spend a lot more time in the confessional booth than I'd like to admit to. But I'm digressing. I think one of the reasons the photo resonates with me is because it's of a Catholic church, and I'm Catholic. Now, when I pulled in, I had to remember something that had happened just a week earlier in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where a lunatic attacked a Catholic mass at a Catholic school, killing and wounding school children and others. It was a desecration of the mass, and a tragedy that only God can redeem. I won't pretend to understand it, but I couldn't walk into that place not mindful of what had happened. St. Joseph's surprised me. It was open. I could just walk in there. There was a weekday Mass, even though there was a national holiday, and because I had my boys with me and they'd been to Mass the day before, I didn't think I was going to stay too long in the sanctuary. They were good sports. We went inside, as I said. We knelt at an altar at the side. We lit some candles, and I quietly took a few interior shots with my camera phone, and I didn't want to be disruptive. There were a couple people there waiting for Mass to begin. The sanctuary at St. Joseph's is beautiful. It's peaceful, and it goes without saying, it's very dignified. We didn't stay for the Mass, but we genuflected, and we stepped out respectfully. I didn't take photos of the school attached to the parish. Doubtless, to me, it was on the minds of any person there that there's a guy walking around with a camera near a school. It just didn't feel appropriate. Now, a lot has changed around St. Joseph's since Stephen Shore's photo in 1974. There are now hedges in front of the church, a small stone rise along the edge of the lawn, and a stone angel that wasn't there at the time. The raised planters and the missing trees along Main Street suggest time's passage, but the church itself still stands, and it stands just as strong as it did back in 1974. I won't go deep into comparing my photo to Shore's. To quote a notorious public figure, there is a significance to the passage of time. And I think in this case there actually really is a significance. Being a Catholic myself added another layer for me in recreating this image. This isn't just an old building. The church was built, I think, in 1905, but the community of St. Joseph's likely predates it. I imagine in the early years the pews were filled with Italians and Irish and Polish people. Now it's probably a lot of Hispanic people. Things change. And over the last 120 years, I wonder to myself, how many babies were baptized there? How many first communions, weddings, funerals, how many confessions whispered to priests listening on the other side of the screen? In a time when church attendance is declining, not just among the Catholics, but Protestants too, there might be a strange resurgence on the horizon. I'm not sure. As the late Pope Benedict once said, the church needs to shrink to separate the wheat from the chaff. I don't claim to be the wheat, and that's not false modesty. It's just the truth. I know my flaws, and I know I'm a sinner. And even when I'm tempted to point fingers at others, I try to look inward and ask, what's broken in me? What needs fixing? Catholicism offers a way back because Christ offers a way back. Christ is the Son of God, the second part of the Holy Trinity, priest, prophet, and king. He is also the divine physician, ready to heal, especially when we enter into church, humble, like the publican, saying, Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner. Shore's photo captured the outer beauty of St. Joseph's Church, no doubt. I don't know if he has any religious belief, but I'm glad he took the picture of St. Joseph's before I was even born. But more than the outside of that church, being inside reminded me of what I love most about church. It's a refuge for sinners, for people like me, and it's a place where heaven meets earth, even in Danbury, Connecticut. Well, thank you for listening. I've put links in the description, and I encourage you to look at Stephen Shore's work because it's really wonderful. God bless you, and take care.